Dear learners, welcome you all to e-learning platform. Now we have reached week 7. In this week I will discuss critical appreciation of General Prologue to the Canterbury Tales, written by Geoffrey Chaucer. Me, Faisal Ahmed, with you throughout this lecture. And in this lecture, particularly I will discuss about the Chaucer's realism in his Canterbury Tales, style and language, what he used in his General Prologue to the Canterbury Tales. Let's begin. Style and structures. The key thing about Chaucer's The Canterbury Tales is that it's a story within a story. He uses a frame narrative to set up who all of the characters are, and then the characters each tell stories of their own. The section of the poem that does this frame narrative is called the General Prologue. And that's what we are going to talk about in this video. There's a narrator who tells us that a bunch of pilgrims have all gathered in an inn. It's called the Tabard Inn in the south of London in April. He tells us with all his sweet showers reviving the plants. The period is the Middle Age. 1387. It's the perfect time for making pilgrimages. So they are all doing it. They have spent the night at this inn and they are all getting ready to leave to go on their pilgrimage to Canterbury. The narrator guy decides he is just going to describe them all. And there are a lot of pilgrims. They are all totally different from each other. They have got very different personalities. He identifies them all by their occupations. So what they do, but his descriptions are interesting because more often than not, he is trying to point out discrepancies between what their job is and how they actually act. He generally praises everybody, but you can kind of tell that in some cases it's meant to be ironic. It's meant to be a joke, like, oh yeah, he's really great. No, he is not. So there's a lot of that going on. So the General Prologue to the Canterbury Tales is an irony or satire of Geoffrey Chaucer. To the people, most of the people of the 14th century England, except the knight, the squire, and the wife of Bath. The wife of Bath was one of the progressive lady in the Middle Age. Represents the progressive lady and also represents the modern feminism. So there's a lot of that going on. There's a ton of pilgrims, and we are not going to talk about all of them, but we will just talk about the most interesting, most significant ones. Go through a few of them. There's the spirit of the General Prologue. We are just cutting some things. J.M. Manley, ever since the Cambridge History of English Literature, 14th century was a dark epoch or era in the history of English. This statement is both historically and linguistically correct when applied to the medieval period. The English language was in infancy and required the hands of a craftsman and the mind of a genius to reach its maturity. This task was left to no other than Chaucer because other notable writers of the age, namely Wycliffe, William Langland, and Gower, wrote little in English. Even Shakespeare felt doubtful about the future of English in 16th century when much had already been accomplished. But it was Chaucer who adopted a distinct style in writing in English. Literature and language are in the process of formation, which are established on firm foundations by Chaucer. And before Chaucer's time, England and all the United Kingdom were under the rulership of Norman conquest, or Norman rulers, French rulers. So the English history, English literature, English language was far behind to flourish during the three centuries, 300 years of the rulership of Norman. So after the Norman conquest, the English people gradually flourished in the fields of language and literature of English. That is why Dryden hails Chaucer as father of English literature. Firstly, Chaucer's style is marked by lucidity of expression or simplicity of expression, joyous originality and easiness free of ambiguities, and direct philosophical maxims or proverbs. In describing nearly all his characters, he uses colloquial language easy to understand for a common man. The people of common folks call colloquial language. For example, Chaucer says, "Night was as meek as maid, or prayers lit no morsel fell from his lips." His similes and metaphors are befittingly employed throughout the prologue. Secondly, his style is not bookish or crammed. His style is rather cultivated and tailored as much to the intellectuals as to the layman. This is the reason the prologue has been popular with men of all levels of understanding. Thirdly, style is humorous and ironical. Chaucer's style is humorous and ironical in his General Prologue. His style is not pointed like that of Juvenal or Swift. He does criticize society. In fact, his prologue is a criticism of life in the words of Matthew Arnold, as literature should be. But he passes from character to character with a smile and uses irony as his weapon to attack the follies of society rather than satire. Fourthly, Chaucer takes up the description of his characters from the positive traits and jumps to the negative ones to startle the reader. Squire, Prioress, and Wife of Bath are good characters in the first few lines. It is just after a few remarks that we come to understand their real nature. Fifthly, his style is not ostentatious. He doesn't exhibit his art through his style. We simply see the picture of society and not the technique through which it was drawn. So Chaucer believes in the words of Swift that real art lies in the concealment of art, not the revelation of it. His style is narrative, descriptive, and reflective, and has all qualities of speech. His sentences are short and simple in their structure. His stylistic qualities and poetic genius contributed to English what no other did before his time, as ascertained by David Datcheus with Chaucer. The English language and literature grew at a bound to full maturity. No other Middle English writer has his skill, his range, his complexity, and his large humane outlook. His light humor and ironical pitches have rendered such services to English, which can only be compared to those of Emperor Augustus in ancient Rome, who found Rome as brick and left it as marble. An apt remark from Lowell will finally conclude the topic that Chaucer found English in dialect and left it a language. Realism of Chaucer's in the prologue to the Canterbury Tales. The British Society in transition gave an impetus to the Englishman's intrinsic love of travel, fresh air, good fellowship, gossip, storytelling, and music. He sought an outlet for all these in the pilgrimages he undertook. According to him, pilgrims were united in their desire, though not in their objectives. The expedition generally turned out to be a holiday outing with an air of carnival about it. These pilgrims constituted a heterogeneous group of men. Different types of men and women drawn from different social classes pursuing different avocations. Maintaining a rigid distinction between one class and other had become a thing of the past. The vast canvas of Prologue depicts the changing social system. The priest and the layman, the poet and the lawyer, the scholar and the artisan could get together on terms of near equality. It would be very easy to reconstruct the moods and values of social life from reading of the General Prologue to the Canterbury Tales with very near historical accuracy. In this prologue, Chaucer does not let go a single detail of dress or character that would add credence to the story recorded. And that's the end of week 7. Thank you very much for being with me. And next week we will discuss different things, different topics. Thank you and bye-bye.